Chapter 4. The sweet taste of vindication. I walked into the entryway, and Marcus Richmond, tall, silver-haired, and wearing an expression of desperate hope, turned toward me. "Sir," he said immediately, extending his hand with genuine respect. "Thank God you're here. I'm Marcus Richmond from TechVision. We've spoken several times, but I've never had the pleasure of meeting you in person." "Hello, Mr. Richmond," I replied, shaking his hand firmly. "What seems to be the problem?" Jessica stood frozen beside us, her mouth slightly open, watching her perfectly constructed narrative crumble in real time. "Database corruption," Marcus explained urgently. "We suspect it happened during a routine update, but now we can't access client files, project histories, or financial records. Our presentation to Henderson Industries is tomorrow morning, and we need those files." I nodded, my mind already working through potential solutions. This was exactly the kind of challenge I thrived on: complex, urgent, requiring both technical expertise and creative problem-solving. "How long ago did the corruption occur?" I asked. "About 90 minutes. We have backups, but they're from this morning, and we've lost a full day of work from 15 team members." "Did anyone attempt recovery procedures before you came here?" "Our internal IT tried some basic restoration protocols, but they were afraid of making it worse." "Smart move." I glanced at Jessica, who looked like she was watching her worst nightmare unfold. "I can help," I said simply. "I'll need remote access to your systems, and depending on the extent of the corruption, it could take anywhere from 2 to 6 hours. Marcus's face flooded with relief. "Sir, you would be saving our entire quarter. The Henderson account is worth $2.3 million to us." "Let me get my laptop from the car," I said, as I walked past Jessica toward the door. I could hear her whisper to Marcus, I had no idea Tommy was so qualified." Marcus looked at her with genuine surprise. "Jessica, your brother is one of the most respected technical consultants in the Denver metro area. Sarah Chen's team only handles the most complex enterprise problems. We specifically request Thomas for our critical issues because he's never failed to deliver." I paused at the door, turning back to see Jessica's face: shock, embarrassment, and the dawning realization that she'd spent the entire evening mocking someone whose professional reputation far exceeded her own understanding. "The Henderson presentation," I said to Marcus. "Is that the cloud migration strategy deck?" "Yes, exactly. I helped optimize the server configurations for that migration last month. The database structure should be recoverable if we approach it correctly." Marcus turned to Jessica with something approaching awe. "Your brother personally handled the technical architecture for our biggest client presentation, and you didn't know?" While I retrieved my laptop and mobile hotspot from my car, I could hear animated conversation from inside. When I returned, I found my parents, Jessica and Marcus, gathered around the dining table, but the entire dynamic had shifted. "Tommy," Dad said, pride evident in his voice, "Mr. Richmond was just explaining how your company handles the technical infrastructure for several major corporations in the area. Mitchell & Associates specializes in enterprise-level crisis management." Marcus was saying, "When companies like ours face potentially catastrophic system failures, we call them, and Thomas here has personally saved our company more than once." Jessica sat quietly, her earlier confidence completely deflated. The sister who had spent the evening patronizing my little job was now learning that I regularly handled technical challenges that her entire marketing team depended on. I set up my laptop at the dining room table, connecting to TechVision's systems through secure remote access protocols. As I began diagnosing the database corruption, Marcus pulled up a chair beside me, watching intently. "This is fascinating," he murmured as lines of code and system diagnostics filled my screen. I had no idea the recovery process was so complex. "Database corruption can cascade through interconnected systems," I explained while working. "The key is identifying the initial point of failure and rebuilding from there without losing data integrity." For the next 3 hours, I worked steadily while Marcus occasionally asked questions and my family watched in amazement. Even Jessica seemed genuinely interested, though she remained uncharacteristically quiet. At 10:47 p.m., I successfully restored TechVision's complete database, recovering not just the morning backup but extracting and rebuilding the full day's work that everyone thought was lost forever. "Incredible," Marcus breathed, watching as system after system came back online. "Thomas, you didn't just fix our problem, you made us better than we were before the crash." He turned to my parents with sincere gratitude. "Mr. and Mrs. Davidson, you should be extraordinarily proud of your son. He's not just technically brilliant, he's the kind of professional who elevates everyone around him." As Marcus prepared to leave, he shook my hand again. "Send Sarah my regards, and please invoice us for emergency after-hours consultation. You've earned every penny." After he left, our family sat around the now cold remains of dinner, the entire evening recontextualized by what they'd witnessed. "Tommy," Mom said softly, "I had no idea your work was as important. Why didn't you ever tell us?" Dad asked. I glanced at Jessica, who was staring at her hands. "I tried to," I said gently, "but I think sometimes people hear what they expect to hear." Jessica finally looked up, her eyes filled with tears. Tommy, I owe you a massive apology. I've been incredibly unfair to you. It's okay, Jess. No, it's not okay, she said firmly. I made assumptions about your work, your capabilities, your value, and I was completely wrong. You're not just successful, you're the kind of professional I should aspire to be, she paused, wiping her eyes. Can you forgive me for being such an awful sister tonight? I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Of course, we're family. As we cleaned up the dishes together, something that hadn't happened in years, Jessica asked quietly, can I ask you something? Sure. When I offered to get you a junior position at Tech Vision, did you know that Marcus already considers you one of their most valuable consultants? I smiled. Yeah, I knew. She shook her head in amazement. And you didn't say anything. What would have been the point? You weren't ready to hear it. Jessica was quiet for a moment, then said, you know what the crazy thing is? I always thought I was the successful one because I had the title and the corner office. But watching you work tonight, you have something I don't have. What's that? Respect that you actually earned. 3 months later, Jessica texted me, Tommy, I know this might sound crazy, but TechVision is hiring a new director of client relations. Marcus suggested I mention your name. The job would involve being the liaison between our technical needs and consulting partners like Mitchell and Associates. Interested in being my boss? I laughed and texted back, thanks, but I'm happy where I am besides. Someone needs to be available when your systems crash at family dinners. Her response came immediately, fair enough, but I'm buying dinner next time, and I promise no more comments about your little job. Sometimes the best vindication is in proving you're right. It's having the grace to be generous when the truth finally speaks for itself. If you enjoyed this story of family dynamics and unexpected respect, make sure you're subscribed for more real-life tales that prove things aren't always what they seem. What would you have done in Tommy's situation? Let me know in the comments below. At dinner, my sister mocked my little job until her boss walked in and called me Sir everyone. Before we dive into today's incredible story, if you enjoy these real-life tales of family drama and unexpected twists, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens next. Now, let's get started. Chapter 1. The family gathering. The October rain drummed against the windows of my parents' suburban home in Denver as I pulled into the familiar driveway. I'd been dreading this dinner for weeks, knowing that my sister, Jessica, would be there with her latest updates about her prestigious marketing director position at TechVision Solutions. At 28, Jessica had always been the golden child. Harvard MBA, corner office, designer suits, and an ego to match. I, on the other hand, was 25 and working as a technical support specialist at a small IT consulting firm downtown. The pay wasn't spectacular, around $45,000 a year, but I genuinely enjoyed helping clients solve their technology problems. My boss, Sarah Chen, often praised my problem-solving skills and my ability to explain complex technical issues in simple terms. Still, I knew how my family saw it. Their youngest son stuck in a dead-end support job, Tommy. My mom, Carol, opened the door with her usual warm smile, wiping flour-dusted hands on her apron. The smell of her famous pot roast filled the air, a comfort that always made these family gatherings bearable. How's work going, honey? Really well, actually, I replied, hanging my jacket on the coat rack. We just landed a major contract with— Oh, that's nice, dear, she interrupted, already bustling toward the kitchen. Jessica's in the living room with your father. She just got promoted again. My heart sank a little, even before I'd walked through the door. Jessica's achievements were already the headline. I found my dad, Robert, and Jessica in the living room, both nursing glasses of wine. Dad was nodding appreciatively as Jessica gestured dramatically, clearly in the middle of recounting some work triumph. She looked polished as always, black blazer, pearl earrings, her blonde hair pulled back in a perfect bun. There he is. Dad stood up and gave me a pat on the back. Jessica was just telling me about her new team expansion. 15 people reporting to her now. 16. Actually, Jessica corrected with a satisfied smile, barely glancing in my direction. Hey, little brother. Still doing tech support. The way she said tech support made it sound like I was cleaning toilets for a living. Yeah, still, at Mitchell and Associates, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Actually, I've been leading some interesting projects lately. That's sweet. Jessica cut me off, taking a sip of her wine. I remember when I thought small companies were charming too, before I realized the real opportunities are in corporate environments. Dad cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. Well, both of you are doing well in your own ways. Oh, absolutely. Jessica agreed with mock sincerity. Everyone starts somewhere. Tommy's getting great experience in customer service, right? That's valuable. The condescension in her voice was unmistakable. This was exactly what I'd been dreading. Chapter 2. The dinner table battlefield. Minutes later, we were seated around the dining table, the same mahogany table where we'd shared countless family meals growing up. Mom had outdone herself. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, and her homemade rolls. Under normal circumstances, it would have been perfect. But Jessica wasn't done establishing her superiority. So, I've been meaning to ask, she said, cutting into her roast with surgical precision. Are you still living in that studio apartment in Capitol Hill? It's a one-bedroom, I corrected. And yes, it's affordable and close to work. Affordable, she repeated with a knowing look at our parents. Well, that's practical. I remember when I had to be practical about housing too. Before the salary adjustments, of course. Dad, clearly trying to redirect the conversation, asked, "How's your work going, Tommy? Are you still enjoying it?" Finally, a chance to share something positive. Actually, I am. Last month, I helped a manufacturing company recover from what could have been a devastating system failure. Their entire production line was down, and if we hadn't, customer service can be really rewarding. Jessica interrupted with a patronizing smile. There's something to be said for helping people with their computer problems. Very noble. Mom, bless her heart, tried to defend me. Tommy's always been so good with computers. Remember when he fixed our internet for us last Christmas? Oh, yes. Jessica nodded sagely. Basic troubleshooting skills are definitely useful, though it's quite different from strategic technology implementation at the enterprise level. My team manages cloud infrastructures for Fortune 500 companies. She turned to me with fake concern. You know, Tommy, if you ever want to move beyond entry-level support work, I could probably get you an interview for a junior position at TechVision. You'd start at the bottom, of course, but with your EXP, ERIEN, you might work your way up eventually. The insult was clear, even wrapped in sisterly concern. She was offering to rescue me from my little job like I was some charity case. Thanks, I said tightly, but I'm actually quite happy where I am. Of course you are, she replied with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Comfort zones are ... comfortable. I just think you're capable of more, that's all. But hey, not everyone is cut out for high-pressure environments. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Even he could see that Jessica was being unnecessarily cruel. Chapter 3. The unexpected revelation. Just as I was formulating a response that wouldn't completely blow up the family dinner, the doorbell rang. That's odd, Mom said, glancing at her watch. We're not expecting anyone. I'll get it, Dad offered, but Jessica was already standing. Actually, that might be for me, she said, smoothing her blazer. I told Marcus I'd be here if he needed to reach me about the Henderson account. You know how it is. Executive responsibility doesn't stop for family dinners. She strutted toward the front door with the confidence of someone who believed she was the most important person in every room. Mom and Dad exchanged glances while I tried not to roll my eyes. We could hear Jessica's voice from the entryway, suddenly shifting to her professional tone. Marcus, what brings you by? Is everything okay with the Henderson presentation? Then came a voice I recognized, deep, authoritative, with just a hint of concern. Actually, Jessica, we have a significant problem. Our entire client database system crashed about an hour ago, and we can't access any of our files. I tried reaching our usual IT support, but they're backed up for hours. This is potentially catastrophic. My stomach dropped. Marcus Richmond, Jessica's boss, the vice president of marketing at TechVision Solutions. I'd spoken with him multiple times over the past 6 months, but always over the phone. Jessica had no idea that Mitchell & Associates had been providing emergency IT support for TechVision's critical systems, or that I'd personally handled several of their most urgent technical crises. Oh no, Jessica's voice carried back to the dining room. That's terrible. But I'm sure our IT department can. Our IT department is completely overwhelmed. Marcus interrupted. Look, I hate to impose, but I remembered you mentioning that your family lives in this area. I was hoping you might know someone local who could help us out. We need someone really skilled. This isn't basic troubleshooting. We need someone who understands enterprise-level database recovery. I could practically hear Jessica's brain scrambling. Well, my brother works in IT, but he's just in technical support. I don't think he'd be qualified for something this complex. Technical support? Marcus's voice perked up with interest. What company? There was a pause. I could imagine Jessica's face realizing she might have to admit that her inferior little brother worked in the very field she'd been mocking all evening. Mitchell & Associates, she said reluctantly. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Marcus's voice exploded. With relief, Mitchell & Associates? Your brother works for Sarah Chen's team. Good God, Jessica, why didn't you tell me your brother was one of the best technical consultants in the city? I stood up from the dining table, my heart pounding. Through the archway, I could see Jessica's face, confusion mixed with dawning horror as she realized what was happening. What? She stammered. Your brother, Marcus continued. Assuming we're talking about the same person, Thomas Mitchell, Associates consultant. That man has saved our company thousands of dollars in downtime over the past 6 months. He's brilliant. Sarah Chen's team is legendary in the city for handling complex system recoveries.